Today I'm going to share with you something that I've been thinking about for many months. It's a way to create total protection for yourself in terms of having second residences and second citizenships around the world to isolate yourself from any number of concerns that people have right now, from financial concerns to fears of social unrest and many more. It's what I call the ultimate plan B for second residence and citizenship, and I'm going to share it with you right now. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. I'm the author of the best-selling book, Nomad Capitalist, available on Amazon, and the founder of the company Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. And you can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. So the ultimate plan B for residence and citizenship, I'm going to assume that you have your reasons, if you're watching, for why you would want a plan B, whether it's concerns of higher taxation, politicians want to take more of your own money, they want to come after you with a higher capital gains tax rate. That means when you sell your Bitcoin or your business or you make your stock trades, you're going to pay a lot more. Maybe you're concerned that your country is going to start taxing you even if you don't live there the way that the United States does. Maybe you're concerned the country is changing, you see greater social unrest, you just see things going in the wrong direction. For whatever reason that you want a plan B, what I've been thinking about for some time is the ultimate. Now, this is not for everybody. This is for someone who wants to invest a serious amount of money, resources, and time in creating a very overall strategy for protecting themselves and basically having different ways to go. You know, when a lot of people come to me, they want to get one second passport. They want to get one residence. Maybe speed is important to them in terms of citizenship. Maybe it's not. A lot of people like to dip their toe in at first, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. What I try and encourage people to do is find a great fit for their budget and for their goals. Sometimes I'm pushing people to spend less. Sometimes I'm trying to push people who maybe I've been in their shoes and I know it's been uncomfortable to spend a certain amount, but I'm saying you can afford it. It's probably going to solve your problems. Let's just do it right the first time. So this is something where you definitely need probably an 8 or 9 figure net worth if you are not looking to just break the bank. But let me just start with basically 5 points of my ultimate plan B. This is not taking into consideration, by the way, your finances, your banking, your companies, any of that. I'll get to that a little bit later at the end just to touch on it, but this is for residence and citizenship to make sure that you are well covered in case you needed to give up a citizenship, in case you needed to move, in case you needed a new tax base. That's all come into play. So the first thing that I would set up is a tax-friendly Caribbean citizenship by investment. This is a cornerstone in a lot of people's strategies where it's very easily accessible to go out and get a Caribbean citizenship by basically handling all the paperwork, filing an application, and then upon approval, you generally make a donation. There's also bond investments, real estate investments, which are generally inadvisable. But what I would look at in this case is one of the 3 higher level of the 5 options, which is Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, or Grenada. So the first 2 being tax-free for personal income tax, St. Kitts having a few more tax-free benefits for certain types of folks, and then Grenada, I think, having some actually interesting tax benefits and being one of the higher brow programs that offers access to Russia, to China, and also offers US E2 access, which will probably accomplish with some of the other parts of this strategy. But you get that all in a matter of months. And so the reason, as much as I like St. Lucia, I went through the St. Lucia citizenship program a number of years ago. I do recommend St. Lucia and Dominica. I think those are great. What I do recommend is if you're trying to create the ultimate plan B, having that place where you could go that is your country, that is tax-free, or that offers great tax benefits, in the case of Grenada, I think is worth a little bit of extra money. I'm often telling people who don't intend to live in the Caribbean country, and very few people who obtain a Caribbean citizenship are going to go and live there. I'm often telling people in certain circumstances where they're on more of a budget, listen, maybe somebody told you St. Kitts and Nevis is more Bitcoin friendly or something. It's largely marketing. Save the 50 grand, do one of the cheaper options. And if you want to go and spend a lot of time in St. Kitts, you can do that because you have this organization of Eastern Caribbean states that functions where you can have this freedom of movement within the countries. But as we've seen in the last year, the country that you're a citizen of, you probably want that to be a bit more well-connected. So these countries are relatively well-connected with Europe as well as with the US. you want it to be a place where if you had to go and live there, you could. After all, it's a plan B. It's the ultimate plan B. So those are the ones I would focus on. I would spend a bit more money. The second thing that I would do if I'm creating this ultimate plan B is if I'm not already a European citizen, let's say I'm an American, I would have a European Union citizenship. Now, do I think that all European Union countries are going to be safe havens in the future? Absolutely not. I do think that there will be some countries, maybe Italy or France, maybe Greece, who will eventually try and pull some kind of scheme. If you look at the things that Greece does for people who are non-resident but own property in Greece, I can see how, with that, coupled with talk of a global minimum tax, that there may eventually be a talk of European values in some European countries saying that means that even if you live in Dubai or Vanuatu or Monaco, you have to pay us. And so you already have some countries that impose limits where you can't leave, for a couple of years without continuing to pay, or you can't move to certain countries without continuing to pay. You could see more of that. What I would look at if I, had the resources, I would say I'm going to go ahead and get Malta's citizenship program. Technically not citizenship by investment. They have an extraordinary investor program where for a 750,000 euro donation plus some other costs, rent a property, buy a property, charitable contribution, fees, you can become a citizen in a bit over a year. And so that's a slower process than the Caribbean, but what that gives me is a country that has a history of being open to things like ship registries and has good tax incentives and has had a number of programs that I think will be more reticent to get rid of those even as other European countries are going to be more difficult, even as taxes are going up. You will still see some countries in the EU, because it is the EU, that are going to want to attract capital in a way that bigger countries maybe don't care about. In a way that Spain doesn't care if new businesses come, Malta absolutely needs them. And so is there going to be a time at some point in the distant future where Malta becomes a burden? I don't see a huge concern of that. I suppose there's an outside chance. I see issues with other EU countries first, but what you're doing with this passport is you're gaining access to all of Europe. Certainly you've got some great tax opportunities for living in Europe as an opportunity, whether it's Ireland, whether it's Switzerland, not part of the EU, but certainly accessible, and you get a better deal as an EU citizen. You've got other countries who are rolling out new lump sum tax programs. Being a European citizen gets you access, makes it easier to travel. And what I think is important is, again, if you're an American, if you're creating this plan B and you ever want to walk away from your current citizenship, could be American, Canadian, any one of these other countries, primarily English speaking, that are threatening to make your life more miserable from a tax perspective, I think what a lot of people struggle with is they want to have an equal passport. So Caribbean citizenship is pretty good. I call it a tier B plus because they can go to Europe. That makes it tier B. You can go to the UK and Ireland as well. That's the plus. Singapore, those kind of places. So you have the B plus passport, but you're not going to the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand without a visa. And for some people, that's just a bridge too far. So Malta helps fill that in. Now, if you didn't want to spend as much money, you could certainly look at a golden visa program like in Portugal. If you actually wanted to spend time there, you could look at a golden visa program, and I think Greece would be less likely to work out, but that could be a consideration if you paired that with some tax incentives. Italy, the same deal. You could even look at a Bulgaria program, which is not going to solve your US access, may not also solve your Australia access, but it's going to give you that almost as good as the US or Canada passport that's a step above, and that gives you access to the EU. So I think that the EU is somewhat of a pillar to make you more comfortable to execute on the Plan B, in addition to all the other levels of access that you're getting, in addition to the fact that you can pass it on to your kids and they can work and study. And I think there's a lot of opportunities in the EU because there are so many countries, and there will naturally always be a couple that want to be competitive. So far we have a Caribbean citizenship, tax-friendly. We have a tax-friendly and immigration-friendly European country. What I would also look at that speaks to a lot of the concerns is, number 3, having some kind of non-EU European passport. Now, if you could get your hands on an Andorra passport or something like that, that would definitely work. It's going to take you many decades. But if you look at some of the Eastern European countries, some of them require you to spend time. Ukraine is kind of a clunky permanent residence program. You have opportunities in other Eastern European countries where you could obtain citizenship in a matter of a couple of years, or even potentially faster if you have something interesting to offer. And I think that would be good because you have some of the benefits of being in Europe. You have perhaps governments that are moving in the right direction, where they're moving towards freedom. When you've seen the European Union moving away from that, you've seen these countries moving more towards it. You've seen that in the last year where they've been much more open. I've been spending time in the Turkeys and the Serbias and the Montenegros. Now, maybe the cleanest ways to do this in terms of just streamlined would be Montenegro through the end of 2021 has its own citizenship by investment program. You were going to buy a bunch of real estate that is somewhat pricey in order to accomplish that. Turkey, if you want to call that Eastern Europe, has its own citizenship by investment program that I think is pretty affordable. And then you can look at other programs that are either fast track or paper residence. Eastern Europe, I think, could be a good place to go. By the way, you've got some pretty good land in some of those places. You can buy land at very cheap prices. You could have kind of a place to go to and grow your own food if that's the kind of thing you wanted as part of your plan B in a way that's probably going to be cheaper and perhaps more stable at some point than something in the EU. So you kind of have both at that point. So you've got 3 passports: Caribbean, EU, non-EU Europe. Let's talk about residence permits. One thing I would do is I would want to have a connection in Asia as a plan B, because I think that Asia is going to continue tax-friendly policies, especially Southeast Asia. So let's look at something like a Thailand investor visa, where you put money in the bank, you buy some property, and you can get that renewable visa. In a tax-friendly country like a Singapore, which has a PR program, if you're not committed to spending time there, I would consider not doing that one. Malaysia, currently suspended, although there all are alternatives to the MM2H. Thailand has a couple different options. I would probably, including the ultimate plan B, steer clear of the Thai elite visa, since it has a clock on it. You're just paying basically for a long-term tourist visa. Good for some situations, great for living there. For a plan B, not as good. I might look at some other countries like a South Korea, for example, with PR, where you're allowed to buy land as a foreigner. That could be interesting. But I want to have some kind of either territorial or low tax jurisdiction in Asia, because I think that will continue. I think that while you're not going to get a citizenship there, they're going to continue to be very open to people who have wealth. What I would also do on the other side of the world is look at some kind of South American country. People may ask, well, why not a South American passport? And the reason being is there aren't really any that you can obtain relatively quickly. You're generally going to be waiting at least 5 years for most of the ones that I would consider. So what I would look at in the other part of the world for the ultimate plan B is buying some kind of land in a country like Ecuador, which I've been looking at a lot lately. In a country like that, I think Ecuador right now perhaps moving in the right direction versus some of its neighbors. I've been a big fan of Colombia, not the most tax-friendly place if you're going to live there full time. But I would look at some kind of land. I think Ecuador could be a good place. I think Costa Rica, now that perhaps their taxes and their tax plan is back on the right track to a certain degree, could be a good place, although more expensive. And so, somewhere that you can be away from it all, which is one reason I think Ecuador works. In some of these countries, you could work towards a great passport. And if you're in South America, by and large, you're going to get access to Mercosur. So now you've got a certain quasi-EU style, movement where you can move around with an ID card. You have special privileges in other countries if you eventually obtain that passport. So that's not a passport you're going to get right away. But let's say you've got an Ecuadorian passport. That's a great kind of alternative passport where it's not the world's best, but it is definitely, I think, something that is different than what you're going to get almost anywhere else. And so if you were to live there and put some time in there, eventually you could work towards that. So I'm not telling you at any point in here where you need to live. What I am saying is go through, get a tax-free Caribbean passport, get some kind of EU passport, whether it's Malta's $1 million plus program, a slower golden visa. If you want to make a huge investment, saving a factory somewhere, we're talking 8 figures in some places, that could work, or even citizenship by descent. But get that going. Have the non-EU Eastern Europe, have the base in Asia, tax-friendly. Have the base in Central or South America, preferably South America, to be able to get that higher quality, uncorrelated passport. Now you potentially have homes in at least 1 or 2 places. Maybe you bought homes, let's say in a place like Malta for the citizenship program. Maybe you bought a home, somewhere else. Now you've got different places where you can go physically. You've got different passports that get you into different situations. You can travel pretty much wherever you want. You have the comfort to distance yourself from your home country's citizenship if need be. You're in control at this point, and now you've got a lot of flexibility in terms of where you have your business. You've got a lot of privileges that not everyone has in terms of how do you buy land and how do you buy property in certain places in Europe? How do you move around Europe? A lot of benefits, I think, in this Plan B. So That is what I have been working on. And if you are willing to commit the 7 figures of resources to doing this, I think you will be very well protected going forward. So people ask, Andrew, how do I get the most out of Nomad Capitalist? How do I begin my Nomad Capitalist journey? The first thing people do is they start right where you're at. They watch YouTube, they listen to podcasts, they read articles at nomadcapitalist.com. We've spent years creating thousands of pieces of free content so that you can get the vibe from someone who's actually done this, from someone who's actually been in your shoes. What they'll do next, they'll get a copy of the book. You can find it on Amazon. It costs a few bucks, and while it's not going to give you all the secrets, it's going to, again, give you more of the vibe. You're going to learn a lot of the things that I've learned. You're going to have learned some strategies you can employ, and you're going to get a lot further in your journey. From there, if you are the 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur investor, you can go to nomadcapitalist.com. You can click Become a Client. We're pretty busy these days, but we have availability to help a limited number of people who want to create a holistic plan, something that I think is so important. So if you want to do that, go to nomadcapitalist.com, click Become a Client, learn more about how it works and how we can help you.